Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I've just gotten back from Bali, so thanks for kind of supporting the podcast while I've been away. I've been promoting those flashback episodes because I just needed a little break, and I feel so refreshed. It's really incredible. Even as someone who's a real advocate for wellness like myself, often I don't take that time out for myself. So, oh my gosh, the transformation that can happen in just a few days of being in a different space, doing daily yoga, daily meditation, beautiful organic food, it's just incredible. So I feel awesome, and I cannot wait to get stuck into today's episode of the pod. Before I get into it, I wanted to let you know that unfortunately, like everything else in life at the moment, my prices are about to go up. I've been putting this off for a long time, but the price of every single tool I use in my business has gone up, and I've just been absorbing that cost, and now unfortunately I just do need to make an adjustment. So that will be happening on Saturday the 18th of November. That's when my prices will be raising. So if you've been thinking about working with me in the Glow Protocol, my program, then now is the time to book in your discovery call, your pre-screening call, and let's have a chat and see if it's the right option for you. It may not be, but if it is, why not get it at the 2023 price or the current price? So yeah, unfortunately, I can't put off that price increase any longer. So today, the podcast is going to be talking about acne in perimenopause. And I was prompted to do this podcast because I've just onboarding a new client today. I'm recording this podcast on Monday, the day before it's released. And that's something that she has recently been experiencing since she's, in perimenopause, hasn't been in there for very long. And she's noticing this acne that she's getting on her jawline. And that's like the classic hormonal picture. It's happening kind of pre her menstrual period. So it very much seems to be hormonally related. And I think a lot of women don't realize that this can happen. One of my mentors often refers to perimenopause as second puberty. And because of some of the things that happen in puberty can also happen in perimenopause. Oh, joy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the acne that can happen during peri and the causes. It's not just hormonal, actually. So we're going to talk about that and what we can do about it. So let's talk about the cause, I guess. Let's start with that. So, of course, let's just get the hormones out of the way. We know that there are significant hormonal fluctuations that go on in peri, and these can bring on a multitude of symptoms in many different body systems, and one of them is the skin. And when we have this decrease in estrogen production and a relative increase in androgens, which are male hormones like testosterone, these androgens can stimulate the sebaceous glands in your skin to produce more oil, which can clog pores and lead to acne breakouts. So that is the simple way to explain the hormonal changes that can lead to the presence of acne. And this can happen often in the context of your menstrual cycle. Other things that can cause it are stress. Stress. And stress is a big issue, particularly for women in their 40s and 50s. And stress can exacerbate acne. Stress triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, etc., which can in turn influence the balance of other hormones and increase sebum, which is your skin oil production, and that can lead to acne. So that is a huge focus of my program, is managing stress. As someone who's just been to Bali and had all of my stress just lift just from changing my lifestyle very dramatically in that particular week because I didn't have to work. But it's really reminded me to get back into my practices that really help with regard to managing stress because it influences so many parts of our body. One of the other influences that causes acne in perimenopause is just the fact that our skin changes as we get a little older in our 40s and 50s. Skin can actually become a little thinner, less elastic. We know that our collagen production can decrease quite significantly in our 40s and 50s, and that can cause these sorts of changes. And this can make the skin more prone to clogging and acne breakouts. And also the cell turnover rate in the skin may slow down, leading to a buildup of dead skin cells that can block pores. It sounds fabulous. And that makes sense to me because in my program I give in the gift pack konjac sponges. Konjac is a Japanese potato and it makes a fantastic sponge to use on your skin. And it's just the sponge. There's nothing added into it. And it's a very good exfoliator. And it really helps. Everyone I give it to just raves about it because it makes your skin so smooth. For me, I had a few little bumps in my skin. It's just removed them super quickly, and my skin has never looked better since I started using the konjac sponge. They're pretty easy to get. It's spelled Konjac, and this really gets rid of that buildup of dead skin cells that blocks pores. So that can be really helpful, making sure you've got a good exfoliation protocol in place. One of the other causes, unfortunately, is genetics. So a family history of acne can play a role in perimenopausal acne. So unfortunately with that one, sometimes that's just the hand you're dealt, and we just need to work on management, which I'm going to get to shortly. Obviously, the choices of lifestyle can influence acne during menopause. So perimenopause, eating a high glycemic diet. So high glycemic foods are those that raise your blood sugar quickly. So simple carbohydrates, sugar foods, processed foods, they can definitely exacerbate acne. And also things if you're using irritating skincare products or irritating laundry detergents or things like that, or over cleansing the skin can irritate it and lead to breakouts. So one of the other causes I wanted to touch on today that's not one that's talked about a lot is the potential for low stomach acid to wreak havoc with our skin. And there's a few reasons for this. Now, some of this is theoretical. Some of this, the research is still being done. But when you look at the logic of it, it does make sense. And so firstly, what is low stomach acid and why does it happen? Low stomach acid can happen for a number of reasons. It's actually very common in people that are more plant-based, so whether that's vegan or vegetarian, because the body is a really good adapter. And if you're not eating meat that needs, a fair degree of acid to break it down, then your acid production just kind of slows down a bit because you don't need it. So that it's a good thing from that point of view. It's a really good thing from that point of view because, your body adapts really well. But what can happen if you don't have enough stomach acid is you can get some problems. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. So that's one of the causes. As we get older, unfortunately, sometimes our stomach acid can get weaker. If you're long-term on anti-antacid medication, mainly the ones known as PPIs, if you've been on that for a long time. And if you need it, you need to be on it, right? I'm not saying go off it for this reason. But if you've been on it for a long time, some of these people do find they have low stomach acid. And we know that there are some people that have been on these PPIs for a long time, and the rate of osteoporosis can be a little higher in these people because their stomach acid is lower and they're not breaking down their calcium products very well and not getting the calcium that they need from their diet. So that's another reason. So another thing that can cause it is stress. Stress is another thing because when we are in our stress response, we have less blood flow and oxygen to lower priority organs at that time. So the gastrointestinal system is a lower priority organ at that time, as is the reproductive system. So they're probably the top mechanisms of why people may have low stomach acid. I'm sure there are others. They're the ones that are coming to mind at this point. And the kind of symptoms, if you're wondering, well, do I have low stomach acid? Some of the more common symptoms generally tend to be digestive. So indigestion, heartburn, which kind of sounds counterintuitive, right? You would think, well, hang on, if I've got low stomach acid, why would I have heartburn? But again, the body adapts very well. And it is thought that as the stomach acid gets less or less acidic, that the little sphincter down the bottom of the esophagus that joins it to the stomach can get a little bit more relaxed because it's not such an acidic environment. So it adapts and it's a little bit looser. And then, therefore, the acid that is there can pop up into the esophagus and cause that symptom. So, yeah, indigestion, heartburn, nutrient malabsorption, because, again, you're not breaking down your foods very well. So you're not necessarily getting all of your nutrients, right? Bloating can be another sign that you have low stomach acid as well. And one of the reasons for this is that if you have low stomach acid, it can lead to certain bacterial conditions. So such as you may have heard of Helicobacter pylori. That would, if you have a low stomach acid, that can allow that particular microorganism to proliferate. Also, if you have something called SIBO, so small intestine bacterial overgrowth, where you have bacteria growing in the upper part of the small intestine that they're not supposed to be there. And if you have low stomach acid, that can sort of set up the conditions that allows that bacteria to live there. And that also can cause bloating, can cause excess burping, excess bad breath, things like that. So all of these sort of symptoms can be signs of low stomach acid. And also things like nutrient deficiencies, such as iron, for example, any kind of nutrient deficiency, really. So yeah, if you have a great diet, you can have the perfect diet, but if you're not breaking down those foods and those nutrients in the stomach and further down in the intestines, then you're not going to be getting all of that nutrition out of that food. And this is where we start to get into the territory of the link between the gut and skin, and that's also acne. So yeah, so the gut-skin connection. Actually, I'm just going to have a little break. I'm just going to have a little break and have a drink of water. I'm just going to pop something on for you to listen to, and then I'll be back to talk about this, because this is actually quite a chunky part of the podcast. So I just want to gather my thoughts a little. Hang on a sec. How would you like to have increased energy, balanced hormones, glowing skin, and your ideal weight in just 3 months? Sounds awesome, right? Imagine having your very own hormone balancing and weight loss strategy totally personalized to you based on your body biochemistry to release excess weight, say goodbye to pesky perimenopause symptoms, and decrease inflammation in your body, which of course leads to decreased inflammaging. That's right, ladies, there are age-defying benefits as well. Oh, and of course, you have me at your fingertips for expert support so you never feel stuck or confused. I love supporting women on their weight loss journeys, and I've packaged up the award-winning Metabolic Balance Program with my signature hormone management system, giving you the GLOW protocol. This 12-week one-to-one coaching program is you and me, nailing down your health and weight loss goals, creating your personalized plan using your blood tests, a thorough health assessment, and your food preferences. And then we get started with me supporting you every step of the way. Even if you've tried everything, even if you have resistant weight and complex medical conditions, the power of personalized nutrition, mindset coaching, and my support is transformational and gets results. And I'm not even exaggerating, even if I do say myself. So if you're ready to embrace feeling like your younger self again, lose excess weight, manage health conditions, and regain your confidence, you can just DM me at Susie Garden Wellness or email me hello@susiegarden.com, and I'll pop a link in the show notes. All right, I am back. And so let's start talking a little bit more about the gut-skin connection. So we know that there is a communication, is the way it's described, between the gut and the skin. And there is a microbiome element to this. So that's kind of where we start with. Now, we don't still know a lot about this, okay? The gut microbiome aspect of it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about just the gut function generally and then link it back to the gut-skin connection. Because I was just talking about low stomach acid, and now I just want to also talk about slow gut motility, because there's also a link here. All right. So what do I mean by slow gut motility? If you're not aware, so we have peristalsis is the name of these wave of contractions that happen throughout our entire digestive system. And it's stimulated essentially by, chewing, putting things, food in your mouth and chewing, starting that chewing motion starts the peristalsis. And that just moves the food all the way down your body through your digestive system. And there are many reasons why you can have a slow gut. There are a couple of medical conditions that can cause it. Some drugs can cause it. Also, like particularly things like codeine. That's why a lot of people get constipated. Any kind of drug that you go on that causes constipation is generally because it's slowing down your gut motility. So, and that's when the gut has slows down like that. The main thing that happens is that the amount of water that is absorbed from the fecal matter is greater, because it just sits in the gut and the body just keeps absorbing stuff out of that fecal matter. And so it becomes then drier and harder and more difficult to get through the intestines. And then if your motility is not that great, then that's going to just make it even more slow and more hard. And that's why it sort of just is a bit of a self-perpetuating thing. So we want to get good gut motility. Another thing that affects gut motility, as I kind of touched on before, is stress. When we're in our stress response, we get reduced gut motility because we have reduced resources going into the gut to get it moving properly. I'll never forget, actually, was when I used to work in theatre. There was a young girl, 16-year-old, I think. I remember this vividly because it's the first time I'd ever really seen that real connection between the stress response and slow gut motility. And she had come off her horse and needed to have surgery straight away. I think it might have been a broken leg. And I remember in recovery, she vomited, and the food it was food. It was completely recognizable food, even though it had been inside her body for a number of hours by that point. It hadn't broken down at all because she'd eaten and then jumped on the horse and then had the accident on the horse very quickly. So her gut just looked like it must have just completely stopped, because that nothing had changed with that food. It was the most bizarre thing to see this coming up. So yeah, when we're in stress response, that happens, and it doesn't have to be something as dramatic as that. It can be just the normal everyday stressors that we have in our life if we're not managing and regulating our own stress response so that we are keeping the body in balance. So stress is a huge cause of slow gut motility. There are certain conditions such as SIBO does tend to slow down gut motility. In fact, to be fair, it is a little unclear whether the slow motility causes the SIBO or the SIBO causes the slow motility. It probably is a bit of both. That's certainly something when we work with people with SIBO that we work on their gut motility. You can have something called megacolon. Megacolon is when the gut wall, so when I talk about the gut in that point, it's the large intestine. The gut wall, if you've had chronic constipation and that gut wall is kind of becomes a little bit weaker and it becomes quite wide, then it allows for a large amount of fecal material to just kind of build up. So that's something. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different causes of slow gut motility. Some of them are mechanical, like the megacolon, and the lack of peristalsis, and some of them are, if we're not managing our stress, drugs, etc. So yeah, and again, if you want to know whether or not you've got a slow gut, there's a couple of things. I mean, if you're chronically constipated, you have a slow gut. That's no question. That's happening. But if you wanted to measure, a very common and easy way to measure your your transit time of how long it takes for food to get through your system is to have some corn and just watch for it to come through, because it will always be present in the stool if you eat it. It doesn't get absorbed or broken down very much. So you can have a look there and see if the corn comes through quickly or not. So yeah, but essentially, let me get back to my point, I guess, of talking about this. So the changes that happen when you have this slow gut motility, that can lead to changes in the gut microbiome or microbiota. And these changes can potentially influence your inflammation, increase your inflammation, your systemic inflammation, not just inflammation in the gut, and also your hormone balance. And that may directly or indirectly impact the skin, including the development of acne. And when you have low stomach acid, and if you have slow motility, you can get this fermentation of undigested food in the intestines. And that can lead to the production of gases and metabolites that can have systemic effects as well. So, as I mentioned before, this is an ongoing area of research. We don't have the absolute pathways involved, but it's considered to be a fairly good working theory, and there have been some studies that come out which suggest this is what's going on, that there is this link between what's going on in the gut and what's going on in the skin. So what can we do about this? Well, if we know what those causes are, then we treat those causes. So making sure you've got, let's work backwards. So motility. To improve motility, you may want to look at a magnesium supplement. That can really help if you are low in magnesium. And a few ways to know about that: if you've got really tight muscles for no particular reason, if you've got poor sleep, if you stick your tongue out in the mirror, there is a thought that if you've got quivering going on in the tongue, that you may have low magnesium. About a third to a half of us have low magnesium, so it's pretty common. But definitely one of the first natural treatments we use for slow gut or for constipation is magnesium. I use a lot in my Glow protocol as well. in the detox phase. So perhaps magnesium may help to improve that motility. You want to increase fiber so that the fecal matter moves through the intestines more easily. You definitely want to keep your hydration up. Remember, that's 35 mils per kilo of body weight. You may want to look, when you're looking at, I'll just go back to fiber for a second, is prebiotic fiber. So that's the fiber that your gut bacteria like to eat. They like to nourish themselves on it. And if you just Google prebiotics, you will see plenty of foods that are prebiotic foods. So you don't have to have a supplement. Foods like sweet potato, oats, onions, konjac, again, use it on your face and you can eat it. Go and grab a list. It's really easy to find that information. I think I talked hydrations, managing stress, and getting regular exercise. Just physically moving the body helps your gut to move. All right. And if you're not quite sure, if chronic constipation is a real problem for you, because it can be really challenging to manage, go and see a healthcare practitioner to get it sorted out, because having good gut motility or good, what am I trying to say? Good bowel movements is important for many, many aspects of health, not just the skin, but everything. Hormones in particular. If you don't have good clearance of your waste products on a daily basis, and what is considered normal would be 1 to 3 bowel movements a day. Okay, 1 to 3. And we don't want them to be loose bowel movements. We want them to have good consistency. If you're not getting 1 to 3 bowel movements a day, you're probably not pooing enough and getting potentially a buildup of toxins, and that can cause acne during perimenopause and hormone imbalances. That's probably the main things you can do in terms of addressing that slow motility and getting the body excreting waste more easily. Stress, I've done so much content on stress. Please feel free to go to my website, go to the blog page, go to the podcast page. You can search my podcast for stress. There's so much you can do to manage stress, and you've just got to find something that's going to work in with your day, so that it doesn't just add another layer of stress, because it's something that you've got to find time to do. That's why I love things like belly breathing, because we have to breathe. Once you learn it, you can just do it all day. No one knows you're doing it. I also love the shower meditation. We all have to have a shower or a bath. So if you can bring some mindfulness into that, that's a really easy way to start to regulate your nervous system. Having a gratitude practice, and you can do that just lying in bed at night. You don't have to write it down. Writing things down can be powerful, but if that's not for you, just lying in bed every night and selecting 3 things from your day that you're really grateful for. All of these things help to regulate your nervous system. And the other one is I wanted to address was the low stomach acid. So how do we increase that? It's actually pretty easy, to be honest. You can increase bitters in your diet. So things like rocket and watercress are the 2 that come to mind really easily. So popping them in your salads really helps the digestive juices to be released. Also, taking time with your food. So smelling your food, looking at your food, touching your food, particularly if you're cooking, touching it, smelling it, looking at it. All of that helps. Just as I'm saying this, my mouth is starting to water, but it helps that cephalic reflex, which is your mouth watering, because that's producing digestive enzymes. It starts that peristaltic process. It starts that stomach acid to be produced. So having more mindfulness around your meals helps. Also, you can do little things like the lemon juice in water or apple cider vinegar in water that you've probably heard of. Most of my clients that do this are using way too much water and not enough of the acid component. So we use 20 mils, which is a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or lemon juice in 20 mils of water around 20 minutes before you eat. Okay, if that's too strong, you can start lower. Just go for like 5 mils of the acid in 20 mils of the water. But gosh, how many people I have say to me, oh yes, I have 2 glasses of water with lemon juice in it. And I'm like, oh man, it's just diluting your stomach juices. So yeah, 20 and bitters are great ways to increase that stomach acid. And if you are on medications that reduce your stomach acid, if you don't really need them, if they're over the counter, then you can choose to play around with that and stop that if you want to. If they're prescribed for you by your doctor, then you may want to have just a discussion with them about whether or not you can decrease the dose, or whether you could even go off them if you feel that perhaps they're not ideal for you right now. So I think that's all. I hope I haven't been too much. Well, I feel like I've wandered around a little bit because I'm still maybe a little bit in holiday mode. But what I am very serious about is my clients and my work. So please feel free to reach out if you do have any questions that you want addressed on the podcast. I always love getting your feedback and your ideas so that I'm making this as relevant as possible. If you do have any issues, particularly related to perimenopause and menopause, but also gut health, I would love to hear from you. And yeah, have a great week. I'll be back on Thursday with my Q&A podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, actually, I really do need to ask if you could rate and review my show. I would so appreciate it. It really helps other people to find me, and really love getting that feedback from you. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts, or the follow button if you're on Spotify, so that you can get each new episode delivered to you every single week. If you like free stuff, and who doesn't, then head over to susiegarden.com and grab my 8 essential age-defying secrets every woman over 40 should know right now. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.